with cultural perspective and also spiritual perspective. Well, when we look at Western agendas, they do not include these things because Western are usually evidence-based. But when we look at community perspective, it also looks at things which the West cannot address when it comes to mental health. For example, in areas in our country, for instance, in the north, when someone is going through things known as Zimbuza, when that happens, they usually say it is an inherent thing. But when the Western perspective look at this particular thing, they do not consider it as a mental health issue, which often disrupts how they can diagnose treatment. But if we focus on community-led initiatives, if we include our culture, it means it's going to help us in terms of development, because no country can develop if it leaves its culture behind. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Mwawi Mavatula. Mavutula.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So yes, as Kunima has already said, we are for the motion that communities need to lead mental health initiatives. Why do we say this? When we look at the global north, they set standards on what mental health is. But do we as a society really understand what mental health issues are? I'll leave that to the audience. First of all, if we look at the Mental Health Act in Malawi, it was enacted a while ago. It was only in 2025, April, that is when the bill was passed. But if we look at how the global north describes or talks about mental health in general, it has a standard. It talks of the DSM-5, which talks about the Diagnosis Statistic Manual that substitutes what mental health is. But in Malawi, if you go to a community and ask them if they know the DSM-5 is, they don't even understand it. Not even just in the communities, even us ourselves as students, not all of us understand what mental health issues are. So we need to move to the community. We need to describe and to define what mental health is in our own culture, in our own perspectives. As a country, we cannot develop, we cannot move into power, into motion, if we do not understand the language we're speaking. Let us speak with one language, with one understanding, with one core value, as well as respecting our culture. Because as Malawians or as Africans, we focus on oneness, the Ubuntu philosophy. That is what unites us. So if we lead initiatives that are from the grassroots level, they will understand what it is. Using the local language, using their local beliefs, using religious beliefs, and not just what the medical term actually says what mental health is. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. If we go traditional, as a country, as a people, we will probably understand things a little better than the definition from the global north. And that's according to Kunima. But Luana suggests otherwise. Rachel Mbela.
Ladies and gentlemen, there would be no use of me to be in a university if we are adopting community-led initiatives. Yes, as the moderator said, my name is Rachel Samson Mbela, and I oppose. I say that community-led initiatives are ineffective for this country. Embedding culture is not a problem, but the superstitions that come with culture. I am young, and if today I have a problem with mental illness, what will my fellow people from Mangoji say? They will say that the gods are punishing me. They will say that there is something wrong with me, when that is not necessarily the case. We need education in this country. Let me take you back to the visions of this country. Maybe our friends have not laid the Malawi's Vision 2063. One of the enablers of Malawi's Vision 2063 is human capital development, which is focusing on education. If you are going for culture, some of our cultures do not even allow us to be in universities, because by now I would have been a married woman if I went with culture. So ladies and gentlemen, I strongly argue that what we need is the institutional ways. These are the effective ways. This is school. You are educated today. Do you want your friends that are in the communities not to be educated? Do you want illiterate Malawians? No, we need educated people. We need educated women. If they were not educated, they wouldn't have stood and debated today. They are debating because they are educated. So I stand with institutional ways of dealing with mental illness. Thank you very much.
With the institutional way of dealing with mental health, because superstitions that come with culture. Hey, Akim Jerry.
Fellow Malawians, fellow debaters, the issue is about now institutionalizing
not just giving the community. What is implementation without a structure that has embedded implementation? My stand as a team, we stand that putting in place institutions that carry those projects is a proper way. After all, if we look according to the data by the Ministry of Health, it articulates that 70% of Malawian people who are suffering from mental illness, they go to local healers, not the professionals. That's why in Malawi, we are facing challenges in terms of addressing mental illnesses. So the issue is now to give the power to institutions who have professionals. What's now implementation without structure? Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Luana. Kunima, you heard what Luana is suggesting here. That community-led initiatives are, in fact, weird. James Lihoma.
First of all, the first speaker from Luana talked an issue of education, where I pose a question to Luana: what is education? Because education is the process that changes the learner. Throughout history, the term education has evolved. Because even during the Bantu period, there was education. Also, we need to understand that we have formal and informal education. And there is an African proverb which says, the first education that everybody receives, it's in their home. Charity begins at home. So, as education has evolved over time, similarly, mental health issues can be handled at the local levels. Why? Because at the local levels, people have had mental health since time immemorial. Let us go back to the slave trade. Slave trade was one of the most devastating aspects that ever happened in Africa. Our fathers were chained. Our brothers were carried off to Europe with guns to the head. Our mothers were left with nothing to rely on. Other young men died along the way. How do we think our mothers and sisters that remained in Africa were feeling during that time? Were they depressed? Were they happy? Or were they sad? Now, how did they deal with this situation? They survived. Because if they did not survive, we would not have been here right now. So it shows that traditionally there have been ways how people have coped up with mental health. It shows that our communities have had ways how they have coped with mental health. Development cannot exist without community values. Development cannot exist without embedding culture, which boils down to an example of the Asian tigers who have just developed 50 years ago. One of the aspects that the Asian tigers developed when they made use of the philosophy of Confucius into their development agenda. Similarly, we stand by the fact that we need to embed our culture.
I will come back to you, Luana. But Grace Chomo, did you hear what James Lihoma suggests? First education everybody receives is at home.
Thank you so much. My name is Grace Chomo, and I'm presenting Luana. First of all, let me address what Kunima was saying, that education on its own, it cannot help, or they are not understanding exactly what is it about, education. So I say that education is a mindset change. There is need for us to view things in a different way. That's why even as Malawi government is coming in to say that there are some acts in the Constitution of Malawi that have to be replaced, have to be reviewed. That's why we are coming in to say that for Malawi to develop, when you look at the human capital development, it says that for someone to develop has to have the mindset change, has to have education first. How you view things differs when you are at the communities. Let me also tell you this, that for us to stand here and debate and come up with these ideas that are addressing the problems Malawi is facing, it's because we're educated. Imagine we're not educated. How would have we come here and talk about these things? So I stand to say that education is a good thing that is going to help in the mental healthy sectors. Thank you so much.
Now I want Malumbo Saka and Itawonga Chidambo to tell me what's it about education vis-a-vis development and mental health.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would like to start by saying, and countering the point that says charity begins at home, but I would also like to say, how can you comment on charity when those in the household are not educated nor are aware of what charity is really about? The second thing would be that philosophies can fail, but statistics do not lie. One of the things that we could realize is, for example, the philosophy by Confucius is something that has been used by China for so many years, but even though, as years have proceeded, they have adapted, developed very good education systems, and you can see that the philosophy itself has started dying down. China, as of the moment, has a population that's 99% educated, with more than 1,800 education centers. Aside of that, I would like to say that education is an enabler. It mitigates the boundary between cultural perspectives and what human development can be. So I would like to address that by saying denying education to local communities through institutions is like placing them in a chain in form of policy and you're claiming that you're supporting them. That is not support, it is a sorry that is showing that you're not willing to help your country move forward. Thank you.
Kunima.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. As my fellow debater said, we're not denying people access to education. But when it comes to mental health, it's a human right. But how is someone going to get education when they're having mental health issues? How is someone going to get education when doesn't even understand where to get help? Because our fellow debaters talked about going into the institutions. When we look at Malawi, how many facilities do we have which deal with mental health? We only have Zomba Mental Hospital. We have St. John of God. But when we talk about accessibility, how many Malawians can be able to access help from St. John of God? And even when we look at Zomba Mental Hospital, it cannot accommodate all Malawians. The population is very large. So when we're talking to education, it means that we have to go back into the communities. We have to integrate both informal and formal education for the people to understand what mental health is all about, what mental illness is all about. And then when we integrate them, we help understand how we can work together. And also in our schools, we can take, for example, in our schools, how many times have schools helped us to deal with mental health issues? Because as students also have mental health issues. We also go through a lot as students. But how can we say that schools are helping us? So it's very important, in as much as we're explaining about education, we can insert the curriculum, we can involve mental health in the education system for people to understand what it's all about. Thank you.
How many Malawians can access Zomba Mental Hospital or St. John of God Mental Hospital? In case you're just joining us, this is Shift the Power Inter-University Debates. And this evening, we're debating mental health. I've got Kunima and Luana. And Kunima is proposing that community-led mental health initiatives are more effective than institutional approaches. Luana suggests otherwise. Are you continuing with that? Grace Tomo.
Thank you so much. And I continue to say that institutions are the ones that are going to help us in looking at the mental health problems in Malawi. Because when you look at even the institutions themselves, when you look at the universities that are there to offer programs or to offer courses that tackles mental health, you look at KUHES, you look at Luana has the program of gender, and it has some of the insights there that looks at the mental health, and they understand better the mental health. And I can tell you that those people to graduate and to go back to the communities, they're the ones to go and pray a law of destigmatize the society, that the community should view mental health problems in the area that it's not a problem for one even to be complaining, or it's not a problem for one to be complaining about a problem. So I stand here to say that indeed institutions are the ones that are going to help us into fighting against mental health issues. Thank you.
Stigmatizing mental health. Rachel, you seem like you are accepting or agreeing with that.
Ladies and gentlemen, I stand with Luana. I stand and I say that institutions are the ones that will help us to solve this problem of mental health. Maybe my friends do not know what mental health really is. Actually, the Malawi Adventist University defines health itself, not just as merely the absence of the disease, but being okay mentally, physically, and socially, which is something that is not happening in our universities. If you would ask Dr. Pilingo, he said it as of January 2026, the director of Zomba Psychiatric Hospital, that the ones that are mostly affected by mental disorders are the youth. The ones that are in Zomba Hospital, we have greater than 70% of the ones in Zomba Hospital below the age of 39. Malawi is...
I'll come back to you, but Rachel, Taonga, Rachel is suggesting that probably Kunima does not even understand what mental health is all about.
We do understand what mental health is all about. The World Health Organization defines mental health as the mental well-being of a person that helps them to cope with stress, that helps them to contribute to the community. As you've already seen, World Health Organizations, they are the same institutions, but then we get to ask the question, my fellow Malawians, who defines mental health for us? Who defines that this is a mental illness? It's about time, again, we go back to the communities and ask them, how do they understand all about mental health? It's not about getting the definitions from somewhere else. We need to recognize these definitions and understand how our parents were able, how our elders were able to cope with these same issues that we're going through now. So it's all about going back to the communities. I mean, people in the communities are not empty vessels waiting to be filled. They're going through the things and they know the solutions that they can use to mitigate the things. So if us, we are just coming up with definitions, we're just coming up with solutions with them, it's not going to help them. They're not going to accept the help because they did not contribute to that help. So it's of great importance that we involve them. It also creates a sense of ownership. It helps them own that thing because they understand that we contributed to this thing. Thank you so much.
James, 30 seconds. I saw you nodding.
Yes. We have had institutions in Malawi since 1860s. Madness is repeating the same thing and expecting a different return. We have had institutions since 1860s, from the time of the University Mission to Central Africa. Until date, we have had this institution. Why is it that numbers show that 80% of mental health clients still go without help? So should we still rely on these institutions? That's almost 100 years over. Oh, we need a mindset change and shift the power to the community.
Nima suggests, Luana, did you hear that? That we need to decolonize these definitions. Malumbo.
I would like to say that, are we truly going to blame colonization for a problem that is coming from within? Let me ask, there was a publication by Nations Publications in the newspaper in January. They had recorded about 10,000 pregnancies in Kasungu alone. How can you go into such a community and tell them that, hey, we're going to give you these resources, we hope you're going to sort yourself out. Yet that very same culture, that very same community is viewing the girl child like cattle. You have seen an increase in child marriages, and yet you're going to say, let us allocate resources to the people without institutions and expect a change. No, it is not possible. Another thing I would like to counter is to say that institutions are doing nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, universities have counseling officers with very low traffic. Why so? The culture is already telling us a definition of men. It tells us, hey, a man does not cry. Hey, a woman does not complain. You see that the counseling office is right there, available to help anytime, anywhere, yet it is receiving no attention at all. Why? The very same culture that we are trying to allocate resources to is becoming a limiting factor, a constraint to development. Institutions are there to help people grow, not to limit their development. Thank you.
Was that you nodding, Grace?
Yes, I agree with Marumbo. And also, I want to take you to the Constitution of Malawi, the government of Malawi, that April 2025 has replaced the Mental Health Act of 1948. What's the reason? The reason is to make sure that people should be open enough and should express what problems are going through. And also the vision of Malawi in the mental health sector is that by 2040, Malawi should have 500 cyclists, more than 500 cyclists, because Malawi has seen that institutions are going to help us in the mental health problems. Thank you.
Malawi is working on increasing the number of psychiatrists. And then you argue we must go local. Why?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. One question to the Luana team. How many psychiatrists do we have as Malawians serving in the institution sector? Before I continue.
Rachel has got an answer.
We have got 3 to 5 psychiatrists.
We've got 3 to 5, right? And you said education is the only way we are going to develop and move away from mental health issues, isn't so? Right. So we have 3 to 5. And you said Zomba is an institution that is allowing to help elevate mental health issues. So we should still go with institution. But in Zomba, the capacity is 400. 400 bed sitters Malawians, 400 in a local and central hospital. But do you know how many people are found there? If not, I will tell you. 400 plus, 460 going onwards. So if we're saying we should stick with institutions, we should stick with professions, we have limited resources already that do not constitute the institutions that you're saying we should focus on. 5 people cannot solve a whole community. cannot develop a whole society. We need to go into the communities themselves, identify people that are well knowledgeable. We can't run away from culture and say culture is a problem, because that's where we're coming from. They themselves in the communities know what problems they're dealing with. They have the solutions. If we incorporate culture, if we incorporate their understanding into mental health issues, they will understand. And it will be better for them to get to a point where they work together. Because we're talking about shifting the power, not moving the power completely to the grassroots, right? So that means we are working together as one. We are given the right to be able to have a say in what they want so that there is sustainability. There's no sustainability if people are not involved in the initiatives that are there. So we need to work together. We need to go down there, rural areas, and ask them, what is it that they understand on mental health? What is it that they know, that they're being taught culturally, religiously, historically about mental health, that they can help us come up with solutions. And we work as one nation, because we say, divided we fall, united we stand.
Thank you so much, Kunima. Rachel, you were pushed into asking questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, as I already said, I think my friends forgot what mental health is. Malawi Human Rights Commission says that it is not health if there is no mental health. Mental health is not a problem, ladies and gentlemen, until it becomes mental illness. So Malawians, we are used to treating mental illness and not concerned about mental health. University students know mental health. My friend already outlined, we have got the LILONGWE University of Agriculture and Natural Resources. We learn gender and development there. And the course of mental health is embedded in those lines. Meaning that mental illness and mental health are two different things. We can have institutions to train people in courses, in things to do with mental health, and not just the mental illness. Albert Einstein once said that we cannot use the same thinking when solving a problem, the same thinking that we had when creating the same problem. Those were ages ago when our parents were using those things. The world is changing. Technology is advancing. Malawi cannot remain behind. We are a country. We are not a community. Thank you very much.
We are a country. We are not a community. Malawians are used to treating mental illness and not mental health. Elliot.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would like to pose a question to Team Luana. They are talking about mental illness, that Malawians we are used of treating mental illness. But we have to ask a question. If we talk about institution, when we go home, that's where we spend most of our times, in communities, as much as we are a country. But for a country to be called a country, it has so many communities. So we cannot address a country issue before we forget the community issue. It's a matter of empowerment, not a matter of imposing something on what they do not know. So it's a call for partnership that you should discuss on the definitions of mental health and how they look at it, how they can help. Are they saying that we should forget our brothers in the villages just because we have gone to university? No. And how many people can actually access all those private services about St. John of God and Zomba? There are just two institutions, and all over Malawi have about 28 districts, which doesn't make sense. That's why we need to empower communities, because the community is what is close to us more than any institution. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Akim, we can't address country issues before we deal with the community.
Fellow Malawians, first of all, we need to acknowledge, as my fellow teammates have said, we cannot choose the same system that has failed us. CASA, it is one of the factors that has failed us as Malawians. So, in terms of institutions, I think our colleagues, they think that the universities, they are the only institutions that help in empowering people in terms of mental health issues. There is an example, Match Foundation. It is an institution that empowers young youth, age 16 to 20, on mental health issues. Are they not going to the community? They're in the community, telling them and also giving them insight about mental health. How can we speak about mental health? How can we speak about mental health to the local people when they do not know the real definition of mental health? They need to know first the definition of mental health. So that's the starting point. Not just going to the community. After all, it is a system that has failed us. Thank you.
We can't use the same solutions that have failed us for so long. Malumbo, is that what you agreed in Luana?
Yes, I do agree with my friends, and also I would like to pose a question to our CUNIMA friends. If it was not for institutions, how many psychiatrists would Malawi have? That's the first question. If it was all about the community and culture, would we even be here today? Let me also say that an institution is also a community. What you refer to as a university is just a collective community of students. So it is the assignment of the lesser, of the greater to bless the lesser. So what my friends are advocating for is more of one-sided funding that's going to one community that cannot empower the other. Rather, if you empower a community of selfless individuals with like minds and can go out there into communities through a shifting power program, let's say storytelling, they can be able to get through and bypass culture, destigmatize it, relay a message, and very, very soon you'd see that that number of psychiatrists from 2 to 5 would shift probably to 10 to 20. But my question still remains, if it was not for institutions, how many psychiatrists would the country have? Would we even have hospitals that are helping on mental health?
If it was not for institutions, how many psychiatrists would we have as a country? This particular day, we've got Kunima and Luana. They are debating mental health, and Kunima is proposing that community-led mental health initiatives are more effective than institutional approaches. Shift the power inter-university debates. A short break. When we return, we are shifting to funding justice, and Luana will be proposing with Kunima opposing. A round of applause for the first round. The power inter-university debate. This evening, we've got Kunima and Luana. In the first portion, we discussed mental health, but this time around, we are shifting to financing justice. And in this particular segment, Luana is proposing that local organizations should control funding decisions for marginalized communities rather than international donors. Luana is proposing that local organizations should control funding decisions for marginalized communities rather than international donors. Malumbo Saka.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to agree with the motion that local communities should control the funds that are given to them rather than having international organizations control them. Why I say this is because you cannot make the decision for someone if you have never experienced their problem before. So the best way to handle such a situation is to give the very person that is experiencing the pain, the problem, the initiative on how they can handle themselves. Local organizations can be empowered through shifting and storytelling and research that institutions can provide. But saying that we'll make choices for them is colonizing them based on what we think is best for them. So rather than shifting from the global south, from the global north to the global south, it is as if now the government is going back to the community and colonizing them again, assuming that whatever initiative they are taking there is best for them. So yes, I do agree that let the community lead, let Malawians decide for Malawi, let Malawi be led by Malawians. Thank you.
Rachel, you seemed like you wanted to add something.
My fellow Malawians, according to United Nations Development Program, 82% of Malawians are made up of the local people. They are made up of the rural people, meaning that if we want to help someone, we have to go back to them and ask them. In Malawi, we no longer want to address wants. We want to address needs. We have to ask the people first. That's what shifting the power is about. Going to the people, asking them what they want, and giving them what they want, even if the money is not coming from the government, but from the donors. Thank you.
You can't make a decision for someone if you haven't experienced their problem. Tawonga.
Fellow Malawians, when we're talking about funding justice, we'll be moving the power from the donors to the local communities. But let's take, for example, what has been happening in Malawi. This will just make sure that there's a higher rate of corruption in Malawi. Because ever since we've been having the same issues, let's take, for example, recently, there have just been the Green Belt casket. How much did we lose? A lot of money because of the same local organization that we chose that they should be the ones to make the decisions for us. I mean, about 39 billion was lost in the Green Belt project. It wanted to ensure food security and irrigation. But what has happened? We're still experiencing the same issues of food security because of the same casket. We can even talk about a lot of issues about people not even taking part, if we're saying we're making it to the local organizations, it's just a form of tokenism that they use. They just get some people to represent and they don't even contribute anything. So it's better for the power to be in the same international donors, international people, because they know what to do. They know they can make the plans. It's not just about shifting the power to the people. With the cases that we've been having in Malawi, it's better to leave them to make the decision for us, because they really know how to handle it. With the corruption cases, it's not important. And even if we remove and suggest for finding justice, we can talk about issues about crisis in the terms of pandemics, emergencies. We still need the same donors to help us. We can talk about, for example, Cyclone Freddy, when it happened. The local organization could not even do things by themselves. The international, the same donors are the one who helped us with Cyclone Freddy, even COVID-19. So we can't do without the donors. We can't say we need funding justice. We need them. We need them to help us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. James, so you agree within CUNIMA that localizing funding decisions will exacerbate corruption?
That is very true. The problem that we have in Africa is not lack, but efficiency. It is a shame that during the COVID-19 pandemic, the US government wanted to give aid to Malawi, but it had to ignore the government in search for the Catholic Church because of the high rate of corruption. How long are we going to trust such systems? How long are we going to trust our politicians? How long are we going to trust CEOs of NGOs who drive luxurious cars, where the people designed to benefit from that project still live in poverty? There have been a lot of programs in Malawi where local communities were empowered, but what happened? Tokenism. People signed allowances they never attended the meetings for. Resources were squandered. I think the Global North is justified by making procedure to follow up on what their finances are funding in Africa. Again, in Africa, we lack capacity building and proper structures. Our system is flawed. Most of Africans do not really know what it takes to manage programs, as numbers have shown. How many projects have we carried out as a country and have failed? Vision 2030, where is it as a country? A country with 22 million people, we failed to achieve Vision 2030. Now we are talking of Vision 2023. What do we have to show for? But let us go back to China. During the COVID pandemic, they built a whole hospital in just 1 week. They worked day and night. We have seminars, we have conventions, we have meetings at Incopola, Sunbuild. Chairs at Ameris Hotel can speak volumes of how many times people have made policies, but implementation is a problem. So we still need a bulldozer to push us into efficiency. We still need to operate by the theory of X and Y. We still need to operate by carrots and sticks if the country has to go forward. Otherwise, if you leave it in the hands of a few, only a few will benefit.
If you leave it in the hands of a few, only a few will benefit. Because the problem we have in Africa is not lack, but I like that one. Is not lack of. Go back to that.
Okay, the problem that we have in Africa is not lack of resources, but efficiency.
It's not lack of resources, but efficiency. Hakim.
Fellow debaters, fellow Malawians, first of all, I want to impose a question. What is democracy when you are controlled? What is democracy when someone governs what to do with the donation that they give? What we need is local rate community organization to rate the projects. For they are the ones who connect to the people. For they are the ones who knows the real problem that you Malawians, you and I are Malawians, we face. No donors from other countries to control the decision making in our nation. What I want to now to respond to the question in terms of efficiency. Now, let us remember, when they say that in Africa, even Malawi, it has not been the problem of it has not been a problem of lacking
of resources,
but it is efficiency. Wow. Let us ask ourselves, how much aid do we receive from abroad? Is it not just we receive money from abroad, from other donors to give us? That means that Africa, we are lacking. It's not all a matter of efficiency, but the lack in it. After all, control leads to colonialism. What is democracy when a local Malawian, a local citizen, doesn't have the power to make decisions on how the funds should be directed to issues that are burning to the community. Thank you.
My control is equal to colonialism.
Thank you for your question. Indeed, I agree with what you're saying. However, if we're saying that we should be in the motion of accepting justice funding, do we really say that Malawians are capable of handling the resources that we get? I don't think so. We have people that are in higher authorities that are not even educated. They don't even have the capacity to run the positions that they have. They were imposed or appointed by family members because someone has power. Do we then say we are in the favor of the greater good? Do we say that common good comes in when we say that we are allowing people to suffer because someone else has the power and they have the resources, but they're not really bringing equality in the resources that they have? If we say that we should stay with the resources, are we really thinking of those people that do not have access to those in higher authorities? Is there really community empowerment in Malawi? If we look at our economic development, if we look at our health sectors, if we look at our educational sectors, is there really enough community in Malawi that it should remain in our hands? While when we look at, for us who are against the motion that we should stay with funding justice, it is because even those that come to fund us, they have people that they respond to. They have bosses that they respond to. They're accountable. The same way Malawians will write a proposal and win a grant. There's no one to account for what we're getting. But in the higher authorities, in the global north, they have accountability. There's good governance. They take account of what has happened and they will come down here and say, we've given you 5 million. Where is the structure that you say you will build in 5 years? If it is there, fine, that is good. But in Malawi, you see a boss, as my friend has already said, driving luxurious cars. And when you go into the community, they're meeting under a tree. So should we say resources should remain in our hands? Really? I don't think so.
Is there really community development in Malawi? Grace?
Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak. First of all, let me take you to our nation, Malawi. Aren't we the one that we are fighting for democracy? Let me ask you. And let me define for them what democracy is. Abraham Lincoln came in to say that democracy is the government of people, by the people, and it's the government of people, by the people, and for the people. And let me tell you this, that it is the good decision to say that communities should lead into funding the projects in the communities. Because let me take you to the statistics of those people who are educated in Malawi. Like the statistics say that 230,000 of people are educated in Malawi. Are we not aware that these people have got the knowledge and what they lack is just the finance? Let me ask you this question, and let me say it out that these are the people that we need to encourage them. We need to fund them with resources. Are the people that after education they go back to the communities, and they are the same people that they'll develop the communities because they understand their communities, and they are going to deliver exactly what the community is lacking. Thank you so much.
Before we continue, central, decentral issues around funding, I just want to get a clear definition of, or a clear understanding of funding justice from each one of the two teams. Kunima.
When you talk about funding justice, it means that communities must control resources on projects that affect them. When you talk about funding justice, it means that the youth and the vulnerable should be included in policy-making decisions. When you talk about funding justice, we mean that systems should be designed bottom-up instead of top-bottom. Funding justice asks the question, who controls the resources? Who decides what priorities are? And who defines what success looks like? Thank you very much.
Luana.
We can define funding justice as the act of allocating resources efficiently toward the areas that a country prioritizes to drive economic growth. Thank you.
And Luana is insisting that local organizations should control funding decisions for marginalized communities rather than international donors.
The moderator, I would also like to argue to say, if you've listened to the definition of what funding justice is from CUNIMA, you'd find that they are actually proposing with us. They are saying that the resources are supposed to be used by the local communities themselves. How can you develop the country when you're looking down on your own potential? There has never been a white man who has come to Malawi and has said, hey, I'd love to live here and I'd like to give you resources we're going to develop together. No. Every time they come here to this country, they come on personal interests. They don't come in the interest of the people. Bingwa Mutarika, as he has already quoted, he said that our systems are inefficient, but I'd also like to quote the same man when he said that he dreamt of an Africa that is ruled by Africans, freely and transparently. The reason why we are looking down on ourselves is because there is constant comparison between the resources and the development that is happening in the global north. It's not only the global north that's developing. I would also like them to check the fact in terms of Vision 2030. It's actually Vision 2020. You would see that an enabler in there was implemented by Rwanda in terms of youth initiative and involvement, and Rwanda has increased youth involvement by 80%, where 10,000 youth in every district are involved in advocacies, they're involved in voluntary work. They used the same framework that Malawi had used, but we forwent the local communities, went and looked for foreign donors, and look at where we are today. So yes, I do say.
So Luana got an extra minute, you've got an extra minute as well, and you're still opposing that other than local organizations controlling decisions for funding decisions for marginalized communities rather than international donors is the best way to go.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would also like to answer the question that they just said. My colleague defined finding justice because you asked the question about the meaning of finding justice. We are not proposing. And you talked about involving the youth, and our fellow debater also talked about the meaning of democracy. Democracy is a government of the people, but how many people are being included? And we can also ask, you've talked about youth, the youth. I can ask you, how many people have graduated from Luana? And how many people are working now? How many people are being involved in the making of the decisions now? If we're talking about youth agency, how are we going to talk about involving the youth if they're not being involved in the making of the decisions? So it's better if the international donors control the power instead of our local organizations. We're talking about the same people maintaining their positions, not giving a chance to the youth, not giving a chance to the young people. A lot of people have graduated, and if you go out there and see, some of them are just working, they're working in the informal sectors. They can be involved in businesses. They're being innovative. But how are they going to continue being innovative if they're not being involved, if they're not being helped? How can we say that that is democracy? That is involving people? Really? Because right now I'm even scared if I graduate, what am I going to do? Where am I going to find the tables to make decisions? Am I going to be involved in making decisions of my country? So is that democracy? We should continue with the local organizations, really. Thank you so much.
Are you also scared, Mai?
Scared of what, Mr. Moderator?
Scared that when you complete your school, you'll be doing nothing.
Yes, and that is very true. If you look at our communities right now, or if you look at Malawi in general, we see that graduates are graduating year in and year out. We have double intakes. Even Luana themselves have adopted the double intake. Are there enough jobs to fund for that? UNIMA has the same thing. They're doing the same thing, but we don't have enough resources to even keep up with what we are doing as a nation. Apart from that, we see that the international funders, they come in with initiatives, with program trainees that help to advance our innovation, youth agency, and help us to develop in human development capacity. But if we focus on communities, if we focus on having the power to ourselves, are we really saying we are going to help ourselves move? Do we even have the same voice in the government themselves? Youth agency, there's no one in the parliament that's below the youth. Are there any young people representing us there, as my colleague has already said? No, not even the minister that is under youth is a youth himself. So do we really say as the youth we should be given the power when they themselves at the top are not even giving us the power? We have people in their 60s, they're still managers. But you see a graduate training program is helping us to be innovative, to come up with solutions that are being funded by the organizations outside there.
I want to pit genders here. Rachel.
Ladies and gentlemen, I wonder if my friends have really read the Malawi's Vision 2063. Because if you look at our vision, it is youth-centric, yet they say they are not involved. What does involvement mean? Let me quote the Vice Chancellor of the LILONGWE University of Agriculture and Natural Resources. Yesterday itself, our Vice Chancellor had said that they take the youth as representatives, as member of parliaments in Malawi. They take the youth, they involve the youth. Which youth involvement are you waiting for? Do you want the government to recruit everyone in Malawi? Who is the government if the youth are not the government? We are the government. We lead where we are. That's why we are called the leaders of today and tomorrow. That's why you have got associations in your respective universities, because that's where you train. After you make the associations in your universities, when you go back to the communities, now you should lead. You should come up with things. That's the whole part of being a youth. It's about being innovative. It's about being creative. It's about thinking. We are the ones that will be there in 2063. I quote our professor, Professor Machira. He said that the life expectancy of Malawi is approximately 65 years old, meaning that right now we are the ones that have to start reading. We don't have to wait for someone to take us. Here, let's go. The table is this way. We have to be interested. We have to be interested in our country's goals. We have to be interested in our country's vision. That's the only way youth involvement can be there. Don't wait for employment. Be an innovator. Be creative. And that's when you will not suffer from the problems that you're mentioning right now.
That nodding was an agreement, Roy.
Yes, it was an agreement of what my friend Rachel has just said, and also to say on the point that they are afraid of where are they going to go after education. Let me come to emphasize that the government of Malawi is one of the policies and one of the goals is to make sure that when people are out of the universities, they have find their spaces to government internship. That's one of the initiatives that are there. So the government is not just leaving us. It is making sure that we should not just live out there, but we should find a space to do our internship. Also, I want to address that if we want to wait for someone to come and rule us, then we'll never develop. That's why we are here to talk about shifting the power. What do we need? We need the powers in our hands. Thank you so much.
Local organizations should control funding decisions for marginalized communities rather than international donors. We're getting somewhere closer to finishing, and I want to come back to Taonga.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Again, I'm on the issue of involving the young people, the youth. You're talking about bringing about internships. How many people are working as internees out there? We cannot really be sure that they're given those positions. And even when we're talking about being innovative, if we don't have the resources, if we're not given the resources to bring out our ideas and go out there and be creative and innovative and all that, how are we going to continue coming up with the innovations if we're not given the resources? We're making the policies in Malawi, but are we implementing them? Because sometimes the policies that we make without resources are just promises that cannot even be fulfilled. So if you're talking about the Malawi Vision 2063, it's youth-centric. Are you sure that the youth are being involved? Because even in the making of the Malawi Vision 2063, how sure are we that a young person was there when they were making that Malawi Vision 2063? Were youth involved? My colleague has already mentioned that amongst the members of parliament, there is not a youth, because what is the youth? First of all, maybe I should ask you, why do you understand being a youth? Because it is defined as anyone who is below the age of 35. But if we're looking at the people as the members of parliament, is there anyone who is below 35?
So keep that question, Luana. We'll come to that. But then, James, we're getting closer to the closing line.
Yes. We always talk about policies. We talk policies, but we lack implementation. Vision 2063 was enacted a year or so years before. What have we done as a country in realization of Vision 2063? They've talked about democracy. Yes, it's good that we're a democratic state, but are we sure that this is a democracy or it's just oligarchy under the garb of democracy? Because, to my understanding, the government of Malawi only benefits a little few. This is why today politics has been seen as the easiest way to get rich. Everyone wants to be in the political circles. Why? Because it's the easiest way to get rich. Only those that were around during campaign periods are the ones that benefit from the current government. Let us not go far. How many people were reshuffled after the change of government? How many political positions were changed as a country? We will see that as a country, we prioritize politics over development. How long is my sister from Nkatabe going to suffer because of policies that are being done and not being implemented in Capitol Hill? How many young men in Sanje will continue to walk distances to get access to education because the big shots at the Capitol Hill have denied them access to equitable education? We visit the poor in the villages on a convoy of 20 cars to visit people who are walking without shoes. Is that democracy? the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We talk about youth involvement. Malawi eats its babies. The policies of Malawi are very hostile to the private sector. Development should be centered around the private sector. But how is our private sector operating? ShopRite left a South African-based company. Why? The policies of in a country are not that friendly. The government of Malawi has borrowed a lot from the banks. If the government is the major lender from the banks, where will a young person with innovative ideas borrow the money to implement his innovation? My brother from MAST once said, we had a brilliant idea, but we were denied access to financial capital. How long are we going to serve under the theme of democracy? 30
Democracy versus oligarchy. Mai.
Yes. Thank you very much. We've already heard from our fellow debaters that they believe that there's youth representation. There is no youth representation, like I already said. Are you telling me that where you are, you're not scared of graduating because you already have a secure job? Have you already been given the resources from the local government to help you? Do you really do? Thank you.
There is no youth involvement. You agree with that, Taonga? You agree with that, Elliot?
Yes, and it's high time we prioritize our people. Because if we look at the concept the Rwanda team is talking about leaving everything to the communities, for how long have we had community organization? And what change have they brought? It's better those who give us resources should control and decide what we do with the resources. Maybe we are going to see the change that must be seen in our communities, rather than just feeding MPs and whosoever represents those communities. Thank you.
It's high time we prioritize our team, our people. Malumbo.
Mr. Moderator, I would like to argue that the people are actually agreeing with us. They're actually saying that we need to prioritize our people and yet want to promote the agenda called imperialism. They've talked of oligarchy. I've heard of oligarchy in Russia, which also happens to be one of the global north countries. You will see that for them to attain a system of government that was efficient, the first point of call that Vladimir Putin did was to dismantle each and every oligarch and prove that he has the rule of law. Handed over the rule of law to the people, and that's why we see Russia as a superpower it is today. So we are talking about people being in government and representing themselves as oligarchs, especially the donors. Let me bring you back to the national budget conciliation that was done last year in September 2025. They said that 20 to 40% of the development capital comes from donor-funded initiatives. How can you say that you want to prioritize your people when you are leaving the futures in another man's pocket? You're trying to prioritize and develop a country, yet the very future of that person cannot be entrusted to them, but would rather go to Europe and live with someone who does not even know how the country works. This is why we are saying that local universities, we were even addressed on double intake. You could see that this is a community initiative by a university to educate as many people as it can and help drive the economy as efficient as it can. As I've already said and defined yesterday, 2 days ago, I said the university is a system that questions governance. You had seen that the interventions are not really supporting our cause, our initiative. Thank you.
Akim Jerry.
First of all, I want to take them back in the days. Let us remember that Malawi was colonized for approximately 75 years. And actually, Malawi, it has attained independence for 61 years. In the time of colonialism, where Malawi decisions held, that's a question that you and I, Malawians, we need to be asked ourselves. It's not a matter of some other people controlling us. It's about us, Malawians, deciding what we need in our community, what we want in our lives. After all, sometimes these donations, they solve wants, not needs. We want local government institutions to solve the need, not a want. Thank you.
We want solving a need and not a want. Grace.
Thank you so much, and I would agree with my friends that we need to look at our communities to drive the development of the country. Let me get you to what happened in the new government that has just come in to rule. That Peter Mutharika has said that he is going to give almost 5 billion Malawi kwacha as CDF to those people who represent the communities in the parliament. What does it show? It shows that even the president of Malawi is seeing potential in us, that we are going to develop this country on our own, using the localized ways that we have. And also let me address what our friends have said about why are we saying that we are involving youth, but they are not present in the parliament. We are not just talking about the youth. We are talking about the whole population of Malawi, that they have to be trusted, not only the youth, the whole population of Malawi. And also this brings the responsibilities. You know, if you are doing a thing that is going to help you yourself, you do it with all your heart. That's why the donors are coming in to give us money, but development up to now is not happening. Thank you.
Rachel.
My colleagues have forgotten why they are here. The whole essence of this program is shifting the power from the global north to the global south. I don't know why you're still stuck in colonization. Ladies and gentlemen, let me address this. Malawians love their country. We are proud Malawians. We love the visions of our country. We love the Malawi's Vision 2063. We are interested in the decentralization policy, and we want to lead the governance, because government is not just an institution that will tell people what to do. Then that's dictatorship. There is democracy in Malawi, and democracy means local people should make decisions for themselves. My friend said that unless you experience something, you will never know how it feels. We have a saying, a proverb, experience is the best teacher. What affects Malawians is not what affects people in the global north. Only we know what affects us the most. Only we know the main problems that we hold. If we can be entrusted with the money, then we'll drive development in this country. Thank you very much.
What affects Malawians is not that which affects people in the global north. Why?
Thank you very much. I'll take you through the principle of Catholic social teaching principles. When we look at the church, we already said that in a time of crisis in Malawi, ourselves are not the best helpers. The government doesn't come to help us. We don't help ourselves. We rely on outside aid, right? COVID-19 came to Malawi. We got vaccinations from the global north. Was it our initial plan to say we're going to have COVID-19 vaccinations? No, it wasn't an initiative that came from us. We were helped. Lives were saved. Before the lives were saved by the help that came from the global north, we did not have anything. We had people dying every single day, family members, people we knew in our societies, they were dying each and every single day. When they stepped in, there was a significant change. The Catholic social teaching principle says the common good. You need to step in. Everything has to be to the greater good of those that are suffering. If our government is not helping us, if we are not helping ourselves, those that see a gap, they come in to help us. And principle of solidarity says that you only help when you see a gap. And you come in to fill that gap, not to control us. Yes, we're shifting the power. We're not saying they should come here, control us. They're only stepping in to fix the gap, close the gap that we ourselves are failing to close. We have failed. You said the government is here again. The president has said A, B, C, D. Really? This is the second time coming in. What did he do the first time? It was the same promises. The same promises that have been said to us. The same future that we've had for many years. We already said implementation is a problem in Malawi. Uganda adopts the policies that we use. They continue. Why? Because they get help. They see the need that they need for their country, for the common good, for the greater good of those that are suffering. It's not just about democracy. We get it. Government for the people, by the people. Yes, that is true. But there is nothing like that in Malawi. Like we already said, it's tokenism, participation.
It's tokenism. Localizing is being rushed here. We aren't ready yet. Akim.
Fellow Malawians, fellow debaters, let us remember where the problem that they talked about, COVID-19, generated. Isn't it from the global north itself? What we need is a shifting of power. Local communities making their own decisions. Decisions that affect them. Decisions that they will implement, decisions that shall be sustainable. According to Gonda 2025, she articulated in her publication, she said, if project or initiative are led by the community people, it will be sustainable. So, to them, what's sustainability? If someone is controlling us, someone is predetermining what we need. After all, there is a theory of opportunity cost, which states that there's no free lunch. Thank you.
If initiatives are controlled by locals themselves, there will be sustainability. Taonga.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'll start addressing with the issue that they raised concerning the CDF. So, our fellow debaters once said, we're just talking about the youth. The population is not just about the youth. Okay then, let's talk about women. If we look at the representation of women, how sure are we that they're also being included on the CDF part? If we just look at the members of parliament, 48 women are the members of parliament representing women. And if you look at the traditional authorities, how many are women? If we look even at the group village headmasters in the village, how many are women? If we're talking about not just the youth, it's fine. But how about including the women? That means that the same people are the ones who are controlling the power. That means the same people are the ones who are controlling the resources. The same people. So it's about time. We just let them, the ones who bring help us. We let them help us because on our own, we have really failed. I guess democracy
on our
has
own,
failed us.
we have really failed. I'll allow James to summarize on behalf of CUNIMA, and I'll ask Malumbo to summarize on behalf of Luana.
Our judges, the moderator, all Malawians, my fellow debaters, the Catholic social teaching, one of the principles is the concept of common good, which states that all things must be done for the good of the majority. Malawi as a country, we were given the power to run ourselves, but what happened? The structured adjustment program that came in the 1890s were a result of the economic challenges that the newly independent countries were facing after independence. Right after independence, economies of most African countries crumbled. We are still struggling with that system until now, just showing how inefficient we are in managing our own economies. But at the expense of that, who suffers most? Our brothers and sisters from the villages. The Catholic social teaching denies that the Anawim should suffer. This is why higher authorities need to come down to help where there is a gap, so that the minorities, those that matter most, must be saved. As a country, we cannot sacrifice the majority for the minority. Then we must rethink what the system of government we have in the country. Thank you very much.
As a country, we cannot sacrifice the majority for the minority. Malumbo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would also like to agree with CUNIMA by saying that we cannot sacrifice the majority for the minority. Our future does not belong to Europe. It does not belong to the global north. Malawi belongs to Malawians. My dad loves to tell me something. I'm going to reference him. He says that whenever money is involved, there is policy. And where there is policy, there is control. Opportunity cost in economics teaches us that there is no such thing as free lunch. No one can come to you, give you money, and say that, you know what, I'm just giving you because I helped. No. We might not understand the systems because we only view things up front, but whatever is happening behind there is something that we ourselves cannot.
Inter-university debate. This is the first semi-final. We got a second semi-final tomorrow. And then the final for Malawi is coming on March 6th. Today we had CUNIMA and Luana. At first, CUNIMA was proposing that community-led mental health initiatives are more effective than institutional approaches. And later on, Luana proposed that local organizations should control funding decisions for marginalized communities rather than international donors. Before I get to the results, I wanted to remind the viewers out there that all these initiatives, thanks to Tilitonse with technical support from Mr. Malawi, and of course funding from Comic Relief and the FCDO UK. The judges have made their decision on who moves into the finals. Hello.
Hello.
CUNIMA, we had the Elliot Dube, Mwai Mavutula, James Lihoma, and Tawonga Chidambo. Thank you so much, you guys, for coming. And Luana, we had Rachel Samson Mbela, Grace Chomo, Akim Jere, and Malumbo Saka. Thank you so much you guys for coming. I must accept that this was one of those debates that I've moderated that was really very hot. It was hot. Not because the room was hot, but the debate was hot. We always say we are all winners. We are all winners because we are in this together, and whoever moves on, eventually we're going to have one representing Malawi and not a particular university somewhere later next month in Accra, Ghana. The judges are suggesting that this is how the debate has gone. Luana has 220 points. And Kunima has got 219. I did say earlier on that I was feeling the heat from there. I didn't know the judges were also feeling the similar heat. But as we said, we are all winners. So, with the results this particular evening, Luana proceeds to the finals that are coming on March the 6th. And tomorrow, we've got Mzuni versus, who else is remaining? Unima. They've got their own motions. Congratulations to Luana. Congratulations to Kunima. My name is Wisdom Chinkwede. Good evening.
Osaiwala kupanga subscribe ku channel ya AMTV Malawi.